HP's Omen 16 regularly has sales so good that it ends up cheaper compared to their lower tier budget Victus. Yet its full-powered RTX 5060 can even beat some more expensive 5070 laptops in games. But cheaper gaming laptops always have compromises. So let's find out if this is a good or bad Omen. The Omen 16 is available with either shadow black or ceramic white finishes. You can probably tell which one I've got. The whole laptop is made of plastic, and it gives off more budget vibes compared to the last time I tested an Omen. I guess they're saving their good stuff for their higher tier Omen Max series. A plastic laptop means there's flex if you're looking for it, but the build quality is okay if you're not sitting there trying to squish it into a pancake. That said, it did creak a bit when carrying it around. There's a little chassis flex when pushing the hinges back too hard, so avoid that. And I would describe the hinge movement as feeling fine, but not quite as smooth as I was expecting. Perhaps the hinges could be tighter, as there's a tiny bit of screen wobble when typing, but not enough to annoy me. The lid sticks out a little to help with opening, and the screen goes back a decent amount. The Omen is a fairly standard size as far as 16-inch gaming laptops go. It's not thin, but at 1 inch at its thickest point, it's not quite as chunky compared to a number of other options either. The laptop by itself weighs in at 5.2 pounds or 2.4 kilos, increasing to 6.9 pounds or 3.1 kilos with its 230 watt charger included. It's a fairly middle of the pack result as far as 16-inch gaming laptops go. Not light, but not heavy either, and still quite portable. And same deal with the chargers included. A lot of laptops we've tested weigh around this same amount. My configuration has Nvidia's RTX 5060 laptop graphics, AMD's Ryzen 7 350 processor, 16 gigs of RAM, and a 16-inch 165Hz screen. But you can customize it quite a bit with lower or higher specs when ordering with the link below. And if it has a good sale, we'll list it on our gaminglaptop.deals website so you can save money. The Omen is available with 2 keyboard options. The default is 1 zone of RGB backlighting, or $10 extra for 4 zones of lighting, which is what mine has. All keys and secondary functions get lit up, and key brightness can be adjusted between 2 levels or turned off with the F4 shortcut, though even at full brightness, it's on the dimmer side. The lighting tab of the included Omen Hub software only lets you customize the color and brightness of each zone, and yes, one of the 4 zones is just the WASD keys. If you're after animated effects, you'll need to go into the Light Studio software, which will prompt you to download and install. It's not there by default. There are a few effects, but there's only so much animation you can do with 4 zones. Typing on the keyboard feels alright, perhaps a little mushy feeling, but I didn't have any problems using it. I'm not a fan of the tiny arrow keys, but my partner noted that she liked the full-size numpad. Many laptops will make the 0 smaller and not have the bigger enter key. The power button is right next to delete and backspace, but a quick accidental press doesn't do anything. You have to hold it for slightly longer to put it to sleep. The plastic touchpad gets the job done, and it worked okay for me, but my partner noted that it feels rough and clunky, with clicks and taps not always registering for her. Port selection is decent, with a USB Type-A port on either side and the back, though there's only one Type-C port on the left, but you can use it to charge the laptop or for connecting a monitor. We had a weird problem with the left Type-A port though. The dongle we use for our mouse just didn't work, but it was fine in the other ports. The HDMI port connects directly to the Nvidia graphics, so you'll get better FPS in games if you connect your monitor to that. The Type-C port will still work, but it goes through the integrated graphics first, which acts as a bit of a bottleneck. And this also means Type-C won't work with some VR setups that require a direct connection to the discrete graphics. Getting inside requires undoing 6 Phillips head screws. Only the 2 small ones down the front come out, and I found it easy to open with pry tools. I'll leave a link to these ones I use below. Once inside, we've got the battery down the front, 2 memory slots just above in the middle, the installed SSD is on the right, there's a spare M.2 slot on the left, and the Wi-Fi card is right up the back. A corner of the Wi-Fi card is slightly covered by a heat pipe from the cooler. According to the manual, HP says you need to remove the heatsink to get to it, which I think is pretty crappy. I still tried removing the Wi-Fi card without removing the heatsink, but I couldn't squeeze it out. Upgradability is okay, as we've got 2 RAM slots, 2 PCIe Gen 4 M.2 storage slots that can fit drives with chips on both sides, and removable Wi-Fi. But I took off half a point for the extra pain associated with a Wi-Fi upgrade. No other brands have to resort to hiding Wi-Fi under the cooler. Wi-Fi speed is fine, and actually decent as far as 6E goes. It's a $20 upgrade to get 6E when you customize the laptop with the link below the video, which I think is worth it considering how annoying it'll be to change later. But it also sucks that HP doesn't offer a Wi-Fi 7 option. Speeds from the installed 1TB PCIe Gen 4 SSD were good. The speakers are underneath towards the front on the left and right sides. They sound pretty average for a gaming laptop. Okay, but not impressive, with only minor bass, less clarity than I'd like, and some wrist rest vibration. The Latencymon results were good in our 5-minute idle test. My Omen 16 is powered by a 6-cell 83 Wh battery, but there's also a smaller 4-cell 70 Wh option too, so expect less runtime with that one. You can use the Omen Hub software to automatically change to eco mode when you unplug the charger, which lowers the screen's refresh rate to 60Hz to save power, and it goes back up to 165Hz when you plug back in. You can enable battery health in this random HP app, which is separate from the Omen Hub software or through the BIOS. This limits the maximum charge level to 80% to help improve the longevity of the battery, as leaving it at 100% all the time can degrade it. Battery life was extremely impressive. This is one of the longest runtimes in the YouTube video playback test we've ever recorded. Even runtime with a game running was well above average, so the Omen does great without the charger. It lost 17% of its battery charge while asleep for 24 hours. But this isn't a fair comparison with the other laptops, as it depends on the size of the laptop's battery. Here's how much power was lost on average per hour, which is a fair comparison. And it's a fairly average result compared to most others tested. Basically the same as their higher tier Omen Max, but not as good as their smaller Transcend 14. I'll note there was some battery drain during our heavy CPU plus GPU stress tests in Unleashed mode, with almost 10% charge lost after about 30 minutes. That's not too fast, and you can use the software to limit the amount of power you're willing to lose. Performance just might drop a little. Honestly, considering the laptop has a 230 watt charger, I'm surprised this happens at all. Let's check out thermals next. The CPU and GPU are covered by a standard cooler with heat pipes shared between both. Air comes into the fans through these holes on the bottom panel and gets exhausted out from both the left and right sides, as well as from the corners out of the back. HP's Omen Hub software allows us to change between different performance modes, which from lowest to highest are Eco, Balanced, Performance, and Unleashed mode. Balanced and Performance modes let you toggle the fans between Auto and Max Speed, while Unleashed mode also has the manual option, which gives you more granular control based on CPU CPU, GPU, or chassis temperatures. Performance mode also has power settings with a couple of basic power sliders, letting you set the GPU's dynamic boost amount and how much battery drain you're willing to tolerate for maximum performance. Unleashed mode gives you more control over CPU power limits and chassis temperature limits. We tested with all sliders maxed out for best performance, which was the default. You've got the option of overclocking the GPU through the advanced performance tuning tab, but none of the performance modes had one enabled by default, so all our testing has been done at stock. The software also has tons of random garbage in it and just feels bloated. I'm talking about random ads and stuff most people probably don't care about, and it just ends up slowing down the interface. The internal temperatures are cool at idle, but the fan's turned on from time to time. The rest of the results are from combined CPU plus GPU stress tests, which aim to represent a worst-case full-load scenario. The lowest eco mode ran the warmest, while the higher balanced and performance modes actually ran cooler. You'll see why in a moment. Outside of eco mode, unleashed mode runs the warmest, but honestly, these temps are fine. You can set the fans to full speed to lower the temps a bit, but I don't think it's worth it for the extra fan noise. Interestingly, running with the lid closed was actually slightly cooler than lid open, and without any performance loss, so no problem if you want to dock the laptop. Using a basic metal stand was able to lower temps a bit, while the cooling pad I test with, linked below, was able to bring temps down even cooler. The GPU seems to max out at around 108 watts, with the CPU hitting around 55 at the same time. The NVIDIA control panel says that the RTX 5060 laptop GPU can run up to 115 watts with dynamic boost, so I'd classify this as a full-powered 5060. We can see why eco mode was so warm. Despite limiting the 5060 to 80 watts, it allows the CPU to run like it's in unleashed mode, all while the fans run the quietest of any of the modes. The more we improve cooling, the more GPU power slowly drops back in favor of the CPU, but the GPU clock speeds are pretty much locked in at 2670 MHz. So I think adding more cooling just allows the 5060 to run a bit better with less power, and we can see the CPU clocks boosting higher with better cooling. Here's how an actual game performs with the different performance modes in use at the screen's native 1920 by 1200 resolution. I've got Cyberpunk 2077 at ultra settings running at native in purple, and DLSS upscaling on quality in red to boost FPS. You could of course use a lower upscaling method like balanced or performance to boost FPS even more, but at 1080p, quality is a good sweet spot for keeping things looking good. Anyway, even the lowest eco mode easily ran above 60 FPS, so no problems here, other than with Type-C charging, which doesn't work too well, but at least the battery didn't drain at the same time. The CPU can use more power in a CPU-only workload like Cinebench, where the GPU is idle, but there's almost no difference between eco, balanced, performance, and unleashed modes. This is the third laptop we've tested with AMD's Ryzen 7 350 processor, but the Omen doesn't quite deliver as much power to the CPU as those others, which is why multi-core performance isn't quite as good, but it's not too far behind. Performance lowers if we unplug the charger and run the test on battery power, though the dip isn't that bad. Single-core performance in particular hardly changes, and the laptop still felt responsive to use on battery power in my limited testing. As for keyboard temps, most laptops I test are in the low 30 degrees Celsius range on the keyboard at idle, and the Omen was in line with this and feels cool. It gets warmer with the stress test running, as expected, but the wrist rest still feels cold, while WASD is barely warm. The middle is a little warm, and the hotspot near the arrow keys isn't uncomfortable. Stepping up to balanced mode, and it's actually running a little cooler now. The fans are still running at the same speed as eco mode, but the combined CPU and GPU power level is actually more than 20 watts lower in balanced than it is in eco, as eco boosts the CPU high. Performance mode isn't too different. Most of the keyboard still feels cool and barely warm, but the fans are of course louder now too. The highest unleashed mode still isn't too bad, despite it using more power, while the fans still run at the same speed as they were in performance mode. It's slightly cooler with the fans fans maxed out, but honestly, that difference isn't worth it for the extra fan noise. Although it looks like a warmer result relative to all other laptops tested, don't forget that the hotspot was near the arrow keys and actually in between the keys. So not even actually on an area you'd be actively touching. Anyway, it's at least cooler compared to their lower tier Victus, while the higher tier Omen Max 16 is a little cooler. Let's listen to those fans. The fans were mostly off when idling in eco mode, but they did randomly turn on from time to time. You can set the fans to always be on in the BIOS if you'd prefer them to be constant though. Fan noise is quite good relative to most other gaming laptops tested, and similar to HP's smaller Omen 14. Even the higher tier Max 16 isn't really that much louder. I found it a bit strange that fan noise is the same in eco and balanced modes. Eco mode should probably limit the CPU to less power. Otherwise, the Omen 16 doesn't really have the option for a quieter fan mode when under heavy load. Performance and unleashed modes sound the same too, so if you want a game with less fan noise, you'll have to use balanced. But unleashed mode was only 5% faster than balanced mode in Cyberpunk 2077 with DLSS on, and given it had the same fan noise as eco mode, balanced mode looks like the best sweet spot for a balanced experience. The Omen 16 is available with 3 different screen options when ordering with the link below the video. I've got the middle option, so $60 extra to get a faster refresh rate, better colors, and brighter screen. The screen looks pretty good. Color gamut is decent, and contrast is average. HP listed at 400 nits, and we must have done well in the panel lottery, as we got a bit extra at 100% brightness. It's a great result when compared to a lot of other laptops. It's brighter than most OLED panels we've tested, except for Lenovo, as theirs seem to be brighter than the rest. Just keep in mind, if you don't go for the screen upgrade, then brightness is specified at 300 nits, which would be closer to their lower tier Victus. Backlight bleed wasn't bad, not enough to notice when viewing darker content, but this will vary between panels. The screen is quite responsive, with pixels changing in under 5 milliseconds on average. Yeah, some of the more expensive laptops are a little faster, but honestly, it's only a small difference you wouldn't really notice. Only OLED panels provide significantly faster results. And hey, the Omen is much faster compared to HP's lower tier Victus, though I wouldn't be too surprised if the Omen with the lower tier 300 nit screen was similar. Total system latency wasn't too bad. This is the amount of time between a mouse click and when a gunshot fire appears on screen in Counter-Strike 2. Again, there are faster results, typically from faster laptops, but this is still plenty quick for most people, and better compared to those lower budget tier options that sometimes end up more expensive depending on current sales. You can boost FPS in games with the Omen's Mach switch, but you have to reboot to use it, as it does not have advanced Optimus. There's no G-Sync with Optimus off either, but adaptive sync is available from the integrated graphics when Optimus is on to reduce screen tearing when FPS is within this range. There's a 1080p camera above the screen in the middle. It has IR for Windows Hello Face Unlock. This is what it sounds like while typing on the keyboard. And it's got a physically sliding privacy shutter. Alright, let's see what HP's Omen 16 can do in games. We've tested it with these settings. Cyberpunk 2077 at 1080p ultra settings was one of the better RTX 5060 results, as the Omen has a full-powered 5060. This is why it's 25% faster compared to HP's lower-tier Victus with the same 5060 graphics inside, and why it's able to beat the higher-tier 5070 in HP HP's Omen 14. Those both have lower power limits, and more power equals more performance. The Omen 16 still does well at 1440p ultra settings, running right on 60 FPS. Right now, the Omen is $150 cheaper than Gigabyte's Aero X16 with higher tier 5070 graphics. So it just goes to show that higher specs on the spec sheet isn't always best. The Omen 16 was still running at around 60 FPS in Alan Wake 2 at 1080p high settings. And again, it's still one of the better 5060 results thanks to its higher GPU power limit. Interestingly, at 1440p, it's not really that different compared to the lower tier Victus, despite what we saw previously in Cyberpunk. So it also seems to depend on the specific game. Black Myth Wukong was also above 60 FPS at 1080p high settings, and this time the Omen was just 8% faster compared to the lower tier Victus. But here's the thing, we've actually seen this Omen on sale cheaper than the Victus, which makes the Victus a tough choice until its price drops below $900 or so. The Omen 16 still beats HP's smaller Omen 14 with higher tier 5070 at 1440p due to the power limit difference. Plus the Omen 14 costs a lot more too, but that's just the way it goes if your preference is on portability. Here's how performance compares against other laptops in the same games but with ray tracing set to levels that actually visually enhance the game, along with some DLSS upscaling sprinkled on top so that it's not a complete slideshow. The GPU's 8GB of VRAM isn't as much of a concern here with the 1920 by 1200 screen, though it can still be a limit in some games depending on the setting levels, and it would be more of a concern if you chose to upgrade the screen to the higher quality 2560 by 1600 option. I suggest checking this one out if you are considering the higher resolution screen. Here are the 3D Mark results. Content creator performance isn't too different to what we saw in the games. There's not too much going on in the BIOS, but there are some extra options like fan always on mode and keyboard backlight timeout that I couldn't find in software. Linux support was perfect. Everything I threw at it worked fine with the latest Ubuntu. Pricing and availability will change over time, so check the links below the video for updates and current sales. If the Omen has a good sale, which it regularly seems to do, you'll find it on our gaminglaptop.deals website. We update that daily to include the best sales, so make sure you check it out regularly to save money on your next gaming laptop with that link below. Right now in November, the RTX 5050 version starts from $800 on sale, which isn't too bad, but stepping up to the RTX 5060 takes it up to $990. But the one I tested with has the $60 screen upgrade, so we're looking at $1,050 for the configuration covered in this video. So far, the record low price we've featured the Omen 16 with 5060 graphics for on the deal site was $926. Granted, that was with the lower quality 144Hz screen, but still, that's really good value for the performance on offer, which just goes to show it's worth waiting for the right sale, especially with Black Friday in a few weeks. But even if the price is right, is HP's Omen 16 worth considering? Let's summarize the good and the bad to find out. Starting with the good, battery life is exceptional. The Omen 16 has one of the longest runtimes we've ever recorded, both in video playback and gaming. Gaming performance is decent thanks to the full-powered 5060. It can even beat some more expensive, lower-powered 5070 options. The internals and exterior don't run too hot. The fan noise is lower than most other laptops. The screen is decent, though that's with my $60 upgrade option. The lower tier one is dim with low color gamut, and Linux support was excellent. As for the bad, being forced to take off the cooler to upgrade Wi-Fi is dumb. The plastic build wasn't impressive. There's no advanced Optimus or G-Sync, which are normally premium features, but competitors like ASUS's TUF and even Lenovo's lower tier lock have it. You can't get low fan noise, as even the lowest eco mode lets the CPU use the same power as the highest unleashed mode. The Omen Hub software feels bloated with too many ads, and the GPU's 8GB of VRAM will be a concern if you choose the 2560 by 1600 screen. The possibility of battery drain under extended heavy load isn't ideal, but at least you can limit the damage with the software. Bottom line, if you're after great battery life and solid gaming performance, HP's Omen 16 delivers exceptional value, when on sale of course, but at the moment it seems to be going on sale every other week. Just consider using some of the money you're saving from the sale to get the higher quality 165Hz screen I've got. But if you want better build quality or other features like advanced Optimus, you'll need to look elsewhere. And if you're not sold on the Omen, use my laptoppicker.com tool with the link below, answer 3 simple questions, and get the top recommendations based on my review data. Right now, in the same price range, Gigabyte's Aero X16 scores well, and you can check out my full review on the Aero over there next.